Today we're going to let you in on a little secret to a used graphics card that'll get you 4060 Ti level performance for much less.
Meet the RTX 3070, a GPU we've been using a ton here at Toasty Bros and PC Bros because of its value it delivers versus the new options Nvidia offers right now. But is it worth buying used? We're going to benchmark it to find out after a word from today's sponsor. Gaming at 1440p has never been more accessible for those on a budget. In today's video sponsor KTC and their Q24T09 1440p 180Hz monitor may be the perfect option for you to jump to 1440p. KTC is one of the main manufacturers for brands like Samsung and ViewSonic and many more, and have entered the market to deliver great value monitors like the Q24T09, which is a 24-inch 180Hz fast IPS display with a super sharp image and a fast 1 millisecond response time. It also rocks 350 nits of peak brightness with FreeSync and G-Sync support to ensure absolutely smooth gameplay. It also offers plenty of video options like 2 HDMI 2.0, 2 DisplayPort 1.4 ports, and VESA mount support for those looking to take their setup to the next level. KTC has been our go-to option for high-quality gaming monitors for those on a budget, and this monitor is no exception. You should definitely learn more by checking the link in the description down below and take the jump to 1440p, guys, if you haven't done so already. And big thanks again to KTC for sponsoring today's video. Now, let's get back to it, shall we?
So the nice part about this card is a lot of times we're talking about pretty old cards that we're comparing to new ones that are really power hungry and honestly just older architecture, but this is only one generation old. The 3070 is a card that has honestly plummeted in pricing because they were really hiked during the COVID times. But now with cards like the 4060 and 4060 Ti, which are $300 to $400, picking this one up for like the $240 to $290 range is definitely a pretty good deal that you should consider.
Yeah, this model right here we got is a 3-fan model from MSI, which we did pick up for $279. You can find PNY models and a bunch of different ones for pretty equal price points, around $250 to $279, or sometimes even cheaper at $240. But realistically, this is a good alternative for those willing to buy used who are maybe considering something like an RTX 4060 or 4060 Ti, but really want to get more bang for your buck, because while we do enjoy those graphics cards, the non-Ti version more than the Ti version, they're really not the best value for the money cards on the market. Anything Nvidia really isn't the best value for the money. But this right here tends to change that trend. So let's talk about the 3070, all the key specs, and then talk about the test bench we'll be testing it in. Okay guys, the RTX 3070 was released on September 1st of 2020, the evil 2020. It released at a launch price of $499. It is a PCI 4.0 by 16 card. It does come with 8 gigabytes of GDDR6 VRAM. It does come with the TDP of 220 watts with a suggested power supply of 550 watts. But shout out to that article for suggesting that because, well, that's what we would normally recommend. And all in all, this graphics card, the specific model we have right here, comes with 3 display ports and 1 HDMI, 3-fan card, really nice design overall, and coming in at $279, I think it's a really good option to consider that not a ton of people are talking about, but we gotta test it and show you guys that it is worth your money. Let's talk about our test bench and dive into the testing.
To go over the specs of the test bench, we have the Ryzen 7 7700X that is an 8-core 16-thread with a large tower cooler cooling it. We also have 32 gigs of DDR5 RAM at 6000 MHz in dual channel. This test bench is packed with storage as well with a 4TB Lexar Gen 4 NVMe SSD. We have an Asus ROG Strix B650 Wi-Fi motherboard. We have a 1200 watt 80 plus gold fully modular power supply, all inside of a pretty high airflow full ATX case. So now that we talked about the graphics card, the test bench, we're gonna go ahead and combine the two, and then we're going to do some benchmarking.
Combine. Alright guys, let's go ahead and talk about the benchmark numbers of this RTX 3070, which we think is a very underrated graphics card in today's market, and we decided to test it in the following games. We played Black Myth Wukong, Cyberpunk, Warzone, The Finals, Fortnite, and also ran back Black Myth Wukong again at 1440p, which we'll talk more about here in just a second. But we decided to run it through this test suite of games to see if the 3070 is actually worth it, and let's dive into Black Myth Wukong first. We ran this at 1080p medium settings with no upscaling, got an average of 80 FPS, a max of 97, a minimum of 20. These FPS numbers are really solid. A game like Black Myth Wukong, even at medium settings at 1080p, is incredibly demanding, one of the most demanding games on the market right now, and this 3070 was able to play it at a 60 plus FPS average. Really the goal for this game is definitely to get 60 FPS, so being able to get 90 at medium details means you can bump up to high settings if you want to, or 1440p medium settings with DLSS, which we'll talk about later in this video. But hey, 3070 is already off to a great start. Next up we tested Cyberpunk 1080p 1080p high settings with no upscaling. We got an average of 117 FPS, a minimum of 99, and a max of 140. These are really good results for 1080p, and this goes to show in games like Cyberpunk or lesser demanding games, you can most certainly run at 1440p high settings with this graphics card. Now, the elephant in the room is the 8 gigs of VRAM when it comes to the 3070. Well, really, that is the problem with the 4060 and 4060 Ti, unless you get the 16 gig model, which, well, nobody should do that. But if you are running this at 1440, there are going to be some newer games that come to the market that just love to eat up VRAM that may be a problem. But when we're talking this class of a graphics card, where we're talking under $300, really 1440p eating up all your VRAM really shouldn't be your concern. If you are in that boat, you're probably going to have to spend a little bit more money. Hopefully the next gen of GPUs in this price range will have more than 8 gigs of VRAM.
Hey guys, Future Matt here. As you might be thinking when watching this video, the Intel Arc B580 was just released, and actually before this video was filmed, so things have changed quite a bit at the $250 price range for a graphics card. We haven't got our hands on the B580 yet to do our own benchmarking, but from the benchmarks we've seen, it looks like a really awesome card, and it changes the status quo by offering 12 gigs of VRAM. So once we get one of those in hand, we'll definitely do our benchmark run with it, but we still think the 3070 still makes a lot of sense, and I imagine with the release of this card, if it stays as popular as it is, it's probably going to bring the 3070 down even cheaper. And for those who want Nvidia, still a good value for the money, but it is important for us to mention and acknowledge that yes, the B580 does exist and is definitely a card you should consider.
But from our experience, 1080p high settings still perfectly fine for 8 gigs of VRAM, but if you want to stretch into 1440p, some of the higher end games you might have to start worrying, but we did test it at the end of the video and we'll talk about that later. Next up, we got Call of Duty Warzone, 1080p on balance settings with no upscaling. We got 144 FPS with a solid 170 at 180 at times. I will say this Warzone drop was incredibly all over the place. Maintain 100 plus FPS, but sometimes we were all the way up to 180 and sometimes we were down to 120 to 130. So kind of all over the place. But this is a good time for me to tell you a CPU recommendation for the RTX 3070. I think the best bang for buck would be a Ryzen 5 7500F or a 7600. Get you into the AM5 platform with an upgrade path, and you can play at 1440p or 1080p high refresh rate, no problems whatsoever. Or if you want to go on the Intel side of things, an i5 12400F or greater, like a 12600KF, would be a good price performance option. And as always, AM4 is on the market with a 5600 or a 5700X3D. You can get some pretty good price performance pairing it with a 3070. In terms of the overall price of a build, we build gaming PCs all the way up to $1,000 with these graphics cards and have had really good results. Next up, we got the finals, 1080p medium settings with no upscaling. We got an average of 160 FPS. The finals is a fun game to test because it's one, very demanding, and also I like to give this game a lot of love because it does deserve it. It's a fun game that looks really awesome. One of the best looking first-person shooters out there. Not sponsored by any way, just really love this game. And it does push GPU hardware to the limits while also utilizing your CPU. Once again, with our test bench, we're running a 7700X, which will help us out a little bit in more CPU-bound games. We'll talk about Fortnite here in a second, but it does show if you pair it with a moderately decent CPU, any of the recommendations I just gave you will work fine. You can get a really good high refresh rate experience. Now let's talk about Fortnite. 1080p DX12 performance settings. We are playing OG Fortnite. We did get 300 plus FPS on average. Once again, one thing, it is OG Fortnite. The other thing is Fortnite is a very CPU bound game, meaning your CPU is going to make a pretty big difference in terms of the overall performance, especially when running these lower settings. But as you can see, our GPU is getting maxed out as well. So we are utilizing this very well. And as long as you go with a moderate CPU, you should get very close to the same FPS numbers in OG Fortnite. And lastly, just for the fun of it, I decided to load up Black Myth Wukong in the actual game, not the benchmark utility, at 1440p with medium settings using DLSS, and we got about 80 to 90 FPS on average still, but we did use close to 6 gigs of VRAM running these settings. Now obviously 80 to 90 FPS using DLSS in a single player game like this is very, very good, and the location of the game I was running at, we were getting close to 6 gigs of VRAM being used, which isn't too bad, but it definitely is getting close to the 8 gig territory. But if you run higher details at 1440p, I could see you getting close to the 6, 7, and 8 gigabyte range using the RTX 3070, but it was cool to see that it is playable at 1440p. So all in all, RTX 3070, if you're in the market for a 4060 or 4060 Ti, you should definitely look on the used market first and buy one of these GPUs instead. Save yourself a good amount of money and put it towards a really awesome CPU platform. Or if you're upgrading from an older 10 series or 20 series GPU, look used, buy a 3070, thank me later. If you're wanting to go with Team Nvidia, it's a really good used option right now, and I highly suggest you do some deal hunting for one today. So now we finished benchmarking this legendary RTX 3070. Let's bring Jackson back in here to wrap this video up real quick.
Alright guys, so we just got done benchmarking the 3070, card that we have benchmarked here many times in the 4 years that it's been out, and of course, it does absolutely amazing. 1080p is no problem for this card in really any game, and then you definitely can step up to 1440p. Yeah, it has 8 gigs of VRAM, but so do a lot of the new cards these days, and honestly, don't let VRAM fool you. It's a lot more important just to get raw horsepower and then worry about the VRAM second, unless you're trying to do 4K.
And obviously with future generations of cards at this price level, we want to see more VRAM, but at the time of recording this video, it's pretty common to find these cards with only 8 gigs of VRAM that can still step into 1440p gaming, especially utilizing DLSS, and the 3070 is a really good option for that. While we probably would stay 1080p for most games, 1440p is an option as you saw in the benchmarks, and I was very happy with the performance overall of this card. And if you are someone considering the 4060 or even 4060 Ti and has the ability to go used, we 100% recommend you look at this card by using the link in the description down below. It will be an affiliate link and it will help us out. Let us know what you think of the 3070 in the comments down below, and if you plan on picking one up, let us know.
But as always, we hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, check out our other 2 YouTube channels and also our twitch.tv/toastybros, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
And we'll see you guys on the next one. Bye bye.
So once again guys, don't forget about that giveaway with the 3070. It's gonna be a pretty awesome build, and hey, if you don't win the giveaway because there's only one, we do have PCBros.tech where there's plenty of other PCs to choose from.
And you could buy one with a 3070. This one's gonna end up in a PC Bros PC build, so if you're looking to buy a gaming PC with a 3070 and don't want to do the legwork of planning the entire build, you just want one ready to go with a 1-year warranty, PCBros.tech, use code ToastyBros on checkout, or take advantage of our holiday sales we're currently running for the month of December. See you guys later. Goodbye.